Okay, checking YouTube audio. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Check 1, 2.
All right, good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the City of Delafield Plan Commission meeting to order on Wednesday, January 29th, 2025 at 7 p.m. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call, please.
All right, Mayor Iker,
Present.
Commissioner Cahalan,
Here.
Alderperson Grimmer,
Here.
Commissioner Hausman,
Here.
Commissioner Jasinski,
Here.
Commissioner Kreinke,
Here.
Commissioner Merrick,
Here.
Commissioner Schultz, City Planner Amy Barrows, Building Inspector Scott Hussinger.
Here.
All right, thank you. So item number 4, looking for approval of minutes for the December 18th, 2024 meeting.
I'll move. Second.
Second.
Laura and Ed, any discussion or changes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
Abstain.
Abstentions? Scott abstains. Okay, minutes are approved. Item number 5, so this is citizens' comments for items on the consent agenda. So this would be for items on 6A through C. Is there any citizens that wish to comment on the consent agenda only? Okay, seeing none, citizens' comments for items on the consent agenda are closed. So consent agenda, items 6A and through C.
Before you act, I'd like to pull 6B off the agenda.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda items A and C.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, so if you're here for 715 Oneida Street, LLC, Delafield Properties LLC, Milnita LLC, Michael Bulblotz for business plan of operation for debug tech services, and for Walters Property Management, business plan of operation approval for signage for a beauty salon known as Beauty 636. You are approved. You can stay for the rest of the meeting, or you can leave if you'd like. So welcome to the city and good luck. Okay, so item 6B that was pulled off. Amy, what do you have that you'd like to highlight?
Okay, so this is just a simple sign for Hearing Life Audiology Services. In the packet, I state that the sign cannot exceed 30 square feet and that the applicants have agreed to reduce the size of the sign to 30 square feet, but the image in the packet was still the 33 square foot sign because they didn't have the imagery prepared. So I just want to share the accurate image so it's part of the record going forward. It'll be incorporated in the final record. The sign that you see on the screen is now 29.86 square feet. That's all I wanted to add.
So given that clarification, is there a motion to approve item 6B?
I'll approve 6B.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay, or abstentions? Okay, so if you're here for that item, you are approved. You are free to stay or leave at your will. So now we're on to item 7, public hearings. We do have, let's see, 4 public hearings tonight, so I'll just quickly describe how the process works. We're going to have a brief city staff explanation of what the hearing is about, and then request the applicants approach the front here and just give a brief presentation of their application. And then then they'll sit down. There'll be an opening for public comments regarding anything regarding the application. And then Plan Commission will have an opportunity to request more information or from the applicant, and the applicant will be given an opportunity to respond. And then from there, then the public hearing would be closed, and we'll bring it up later in the order of business. So with that, public hearing number 1 is for a conditional use amendment for Elmbrook Church. So if you'd like to come forward, please, and just state your name. You can press the bar on the bottom and then state your name and address, please, and Amy will go from there.
Michael Jones, County Road ZC, Delafield, Wisconsin, 53118.
Okay. Amy, a brief description?
Okay, so we talked about this last month, but for a matter of getting the public hearing record in place, I'm just going to repeat myself a bit. So Elmbrook Church is proposing to install an outdoor playground south of the building and east of the southern parking lot. This is an area where they already have their outdoor activities. It'll accommodate the church and the school that's part of the church facilities. And the playground area will be about 7,020 square feet. They did update the playground equipment images that are included in the packet. And then, if you'll remember, a couple of years ago, they had a conditional use amendment to incorporate a tent that's part of a summer camp activities, and there is an exhibit in that conditional use for the tent area. It happens to be in the same location as the playground. So they've agreed that if they do use the tent, which they may or may not end up doing going forward, it would be directly adjacent to that playground. So we're just going to go ahead and use their exhibit that shows the playground area in green, and then I just added a box that says proposed playground and tent area.
Would you like to add anything to that description of what you're up to?
I don't think so. Like I said, like Amy already said, we just want to add a playground, and we might have a tent sometimes in the summer just for shade during lunch and stuff like that for summer camp. But other than that, we won't have a tent. The playground, as you can see, is built aesthetically pleasing to utilize the colors of the landscape and everything else so that it won't stand out, and it'll just blend in with the background.
And this is an activity that's been going on for a while, right? I mean,
Yes.
yeah, okay.
And the nearest houses are several hundred feet away to the east, northeast, and there's a tree line, and the houses are higher than the church property. And then the golf course is directly east.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll give the opportunity for anybody here from the public who wishes to speak, if they'd like to come up. Would anybody like to speak to public hearing number 1 regarding Elmbrook Church and their recreational activities? Going once. Okay. No feedback from the public. Any questions from the commission from the applicant? Okay, with that, well, we'll consider public hearing 1 closed. So going on to public hearing number 2, conditional use amendment for American Legion Post number 196, 333 North Lapham Peak Road. A conditional use amendment to allow the construction of a storage building. Is there a representative from the Legion here? 2 of them, perfect. You have a mic for each of you. Please just press the bottom bar and introduce yourself with your name and address for the record, please.
Jennifer McCarthy, 828 Dante Drive, Oconomowoc, Wisconsin.
George Gunlock, American Legion Post 333 North Lapham Peak Road. I am the I'm the commander's assistant.
Great. Amy?
Okay, so this property is subject to a conditional use as a semi-public use. It's used by the American Legion. They're proposing to remove the detached garage on the north side of the property and a shed. These 2 structures that I'm pointing to on the screen that are closest to the parking lot. And they'll replace both of those buildings with one 24 by 54 foot building. That's 1,296 square feet. The building will have vinyl siding that matches the main building on the structure, and the roof materials will match the roof of the structure. The total height, 17 feet 4 inches. The sidewalls are 11 feet tall. There is an existing tree line of evergreens on the north lot line that were planted by the subdivision Delafield Parkway. The building will be 16 feet from the lot line, which is the required offset per the zoning district. Semi-public uses do have to be double the offset, however, because this building's used for storage, they can meet the regular offset requirements. The building will have 1 overhead door and 1 service door facing the road. No windows or doors facing the north lot line, which is adjacent to Delafield Parkway. And then 3 standard size windows facing the south and another overhead door and 2 man doors facing west. They also, at last month's meeting, it was brought up what kind of flooring they're going to have in the garage. It will be like a true grid material. They are not putting in a concrete floor. Scott has reviewed and said that that was an acceptable method. So I think I can explain the rest during the discussion and action.
Is there anything you'd like to add to that at all? And excuse me if I seem like I'm pushing things along in a hurry.
No, not
Take
at
your
all.
time. So,
I have nothing to add.
Nope.
Okay.
good.
Storage building, okay. Very good. Well, thank you. Does anybody here from the public wish to comment on public hearing number 2 for the addition of an outbuilding for American Legion? Okay, going once, seeing no comments, public hearing number 2. Actually, any questions from the commission for the applicant? Okay. With that, public hearing number 2 is closed. So public hearing number 3, conditional use, 805 Well Street condominiums, owner BAL LER Group 2 LLC, Tyler Foster Ware Design Build, conditional use for a 6-unit multifamily condominium. Is the applicant here tonight? Please come up and introduce yourself, name and address, please.
First of all,
Actually,
I'm
on the
sorry.
desk would probably be optimal. Yeah.
I couldn't find our easels. It's nowhere to be found in our office, so. Dan Eckerman, I'm president of Ware Design Build. My address W227S6550 Isabella Court, Waukesha, Wisconsin.
Tyler Foster, address 17500 West Liberty Lane, New Berlin.
Great. Amy, description, please.
Okay, so this property is part of 2 tax key parcels. It's about 3/4 acre in size, 35,283 square feet. It's located on the block between Wells and Main Street, and then Lake Street and Bleecker Street. So currently, there is an existing building that's used as a radon mitigation company. And to the east of the building, there's quite a bit of commercial vehicles that are parked on the property for the business. And the applicant would like to combine the 2 parcels, which they did come to Plan Commission last month, and then that was followed by Common Council, reviewed and approved. The applicants will probably hold off on recording that certified survey map until the development gets approved. But they're going to raise the building and construct 3 2-unit condominium buildings, or they're proposing to. Multifamily residential use is a conditional use in the CBD 2 district. And since the applicant's proposing a condominium-style development, so each of the units will be owned by the occupant, they do need to submit a condominium plat, and that was not provided in this month's packet. So because of that, we do want to see the condominium plat and the associated declaration of restrictions. So you'll see at the end when we get to closing the hearing, that I'm recommending actually leaving it open until next month until we can get that information, or it could possibly even be March. All of 3 of the buildings do, let me just try to find, here's a better site plan. It's hard to see on the big screen. But all 3 buildings do comply with the setbacks, which is 10 feet from sides, rear, and the road setback. However, there might be some porches that aren't showing up on the civil plans that are on the floor plans. So we do need to make sure that we have accurate site plan information, because if those porches extend further than the walls, they are going to creep into the required setback. And there's also patios which do not have to meet the setback. The buildings do comply with the 50% floor area ratio provision. They're proposing 33.5%. And the CBD 2 district does not have any required open space provisions. So each of the buildings will have a 2-car attached garage, and then they'll also have 12 additional parking spaces, which is essentially equivalent to two guest spaces per unit. Those would be outside. They are proposing a little turnaround on the north end of the property. We'll want to ask the applicant, it does not look like the intention is to extend all the way to the north lot line. One item the Plan Commission and Public Works may want to consider is whether or not they want the road to extend to the north, or if you want to require an easement to potentially extend to the north in the event the lots are ever developed, and that extension is requested in the future. They also modified their plans after last month's meeting. They included a trail connector to go from the trail that's on the south side of Wells Street, connecting into their entrance to the site. We would ask that that be considered by Public Works, whether or not that is or isn't appropriate. And then staff has also asked that Public Works review whether or not access to Lake Street is necessary as part of this development. There's some topography challenges related to that, but there is currently an opening with retaining walls on either side. So the buildings themselves, the architectural renderings, I think it looks like you have some nice materials. If you want to go ahead and just explain the three buildings, the buildings are slightly different, but they all have compatible design criteria between the three, or the same types of materials between the three buildings. Do you want to go ahead and just explain all of the material types that you intend to use?
Yep, all the material types, we've got actually samples of here. There's gonna be masonry, there's gonna be metal exposed roofs, there's gonna be smart siding on the side. Front doors are gonna be black, and then the siding's gonna be some flat siding with the fascia and trim. So, I mean, the design of them is to look different from a lot of other buildings. We wanted to have a contemporary flair, so.
Okay,
Can I ask a couple questions?
go ahead.
What are the square footage living space for the units?
2,000 square feet apiece, very
Each of them?
roughly 2,000 square feet.
And do you have a sense of what the asking price would be?
We did until we got the comments back from the engineering department. Now I can't answer that yet. So they're gonna be roughly $1.2 million to $1.4 million, somewhere in that range.
Okay. Well, I'm just curious, what hiccup did the engineering provide?
I don't know if I brought that list. A number of things. So we're addressing them right now, and Mark Elena, our civil engineer, is here. So our initial budgets, we didn't have as much storm sewer involved, so now we do.
Okay.
So,
All right.
yep.
Okay, so each of the units will be about 2,000 square feet. There are 2 levels with 2 or 3 bedrooms and 2.5 baths. And then there's an additional office or bedroom supplied in each unit, if I'm explaining that correctly. And then lighting for the site, they'll come back next month with more defined catalog cut sheets to go with the photometrics, but they did submit a photometric plan, and we'll have our engineering team review it. Right now, they're proposing 3 pole lights in the parking lot areas, and those are proposed to be 20 feet in height. So we'll look at that carefully. There are residential properties adjacent to this property, so we'll look at shielding and downcasting and see if there's any way to reduce the height of those lights a little bit, to be a little bit more residential in nature, if possible.
I would agree with that.
And then landscaping, they submitted landscape plans. We'll need to look at, the landscape plans didn't make it in the packet. Those were provided at the end of last week. They will need to update the landscape plan. They have landscaping along the sides of the building, but it doesn't look like there's any landscaping at the ends or around the parking areas. And I believe that you'll want to, the code requires that they screen the parking areas adjacent to residential properties. So we'll need that. And then signage, they're going to be proposing a monument sign at the entrance of the subdivision on the left side of the entrance. That sign will have that slight, if you can see it on the screen, a real slight illumination proposed at night. So Plan Commission will want to provide feedback on whether or not you feel it's appropriate. It appears to be really similar to what was approved at St. John's for that little just halo type feel. But the sign may also need to be reduced in size. I will verify with the city attorney tomorrow, but subdivision entrance signage is limited to 20 square feet. It looks like they're proposing a 30 square foot sign without the monument piece. And there are also signage provisions for CBD2, but those are generally intended for commercial type uses, not in a residential setting. And then engineering, the applicants did get an engineering letter. Very quickly, the applicant's engineer has been responsive to the engineer comments, so they have been going back and forth. The list is getting shorter and shorter compared to what you have in the packet. So hopefully we can get really close before the next meeting. There was a public comment letter, a really well-written public comment letter that I believe all the plan commissioners got, and we'll want to just quickly go through those items. One of the concerns was drainage, and that is definitely something that the engineering staff will be reviewing, is drainage in a master grading plan will be part of the project.
Can I jump in here, Amy?
Sure.
We have actually, Amy's forwarded us a copy of the letter, and I've actually met with the residences. In fact, they're here, and we've addressed all their comments with them. One of the things that they wanted along the north property line is a screening fence of some sort versus landscaping. And so we've just showed them a 6-foot-high black fence along there that we'll have to run that by you guys and submit it to you guys, but.
Yes, the fence will definitely, if you're going to pursue that, will definitely need to be part of this application. And Plan Commission may or may not desire that, so we'll.
The other thing they brought up
Thing to
is
talk about.
there's some existing trees on their property that they'd like to have removed. We're willing to take those out of there for them too.
Okay. And then tree cutting is kind of interesting because it sounds like the trees are on the neighbor's property. And if they voluntarily cut trees on a single-family residential property on behalf of the neighbors, that's not necessarily part of the proposal for this project. But if the trees are on the subject property, then they're subject to the tree preservation restrictions, which we require 1-inch to 1-inch compensation. So what would probably be best for your site plan for the next meeting is to just locate the trunks of those trees so we know whose property they're on.
Perfect.
So we've got the engineering review letter. The fire department has reviewed the preliminary layout. They feel like it will be okay, but engineering and the fire department want to make sure that they have fire truck accessibility to all portions of the property, so they just need to see the turning radiuses throughout the site. And with that, I am recommending again that the public hearing remain open so that we can get that condominium plat, some updated plans that may come back in February or March. But I do think this is definitely a worthwhile time to hear from the public and for you to provide feedback so they can clean up their plans as much as possible.
Amy, why, for 6-unit, is there a reason you need pole lighting? Like, if it's only 6 units, why do you need parking lot like pole light? I think I heard you say that.
Yes, well, it'd be a better question for the applicants. I mean, there are probably other ways to slightly light the site. I don't know how close, like, the buildings are to the different stalls, if there's a way to you have to be careful, though, because when you put lights on buildings and you're trying to illuminate an exterior parking area, you're actually pointing it then at the adjacent properties where pole lights could possibly point it more downward.
I believe we had to meet your minimum foot candle requirements. I'd much rather see like a 12-foot pole, or even if we had to add a pole and go 12 foot high, and if we had to put a shield on them so there was no light spillage onto the neighbor's property, that'd be the right way to do it. Sorry, I didn't realize they were 20-foot high poles, so.
But to Dan's point, I guess what's the intent? Is it necessary? Is it?
I think that's a question for you guys. We'd prefer not to have them.
That area doesn't have lighting like that, right? It's,
Not that I can recall.
I don't know that it should be any more than the residential.
yeah, that's what I was
lighting.
thinking, it's like,
Why does it need to be lit
Why
up
do you
more
need-
than
yeah.
adjacent neighbors?
Yeah, I think we should talk about that. We're meeting with Dan tomorrow, because the way the city's code is written, it's more heavy on maximums than it is minimums,
that actually
especially in a
makes total sense.
residential area.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense.
Might be good to finish like the presentation. We're getting pretty granular here, and we want to solicit the public input here too, so. Where are you at in your?
I'm done.
Okay. Why don't you just give the higher view of why you picked Delafield and what your goal is for this development?
It's obvious why we picked Delafield. It's great. People love to live out here.
It is.
Actually, the partners on the thing own Lifetime Radon. I don't know if Scott's here or not. I don't think he's here, but, so they were looking for something to do with the property and they approached us, so. And we wanted to design something that stands out. That's not like every other thing you see all over the place, so.
Okay, very good. Well, with that, you'll be back in a minute, so why don't you retire and we'll let public weigh in. If there's anybody here who would like to come up and speak to this public hearing number, what is this, number 3? Yes, Press the bottom bar, make sure the green light goes on, and then name and address, please.
Joanne Genetti Teeple, Genetti Gardens, 611 Bleecker Street. I'm right behind these guys. I am totally for this. It is a beautiful layout, and I have no issues whatsoever, except there is a tricolor beach on the corner of Lake and Wells that I pray that they will not take down, because it is a magnificent tree, and they are so slow growing. That's the only thing I'm hoping, that that can be kept.
All right.
Where is that tree?
It's on the corner of Lake and Wells. It's right on the very corner, up on the top part of the hill. But I have absolutely no qualms, but it's a beautiful design, and I'm all for it.
The southwest corner?
The building's here, it's right there.
You can work out where it is.
I'm left-handed, don't ask me these questions.
All right, I appreciate the comments. You guys can work out where it is.
No.
Is there anybody else who'd like to speak to this? Yes, Jackie.
I think I know that tree, and it's on the northwest corner. I'm the resident tree hugger and lake lover, but I'm also a bird lover.
Name and address, please.
Jackie Valdy Milstead, Milsted, 816 Mills Street in Delafield. And my only question is about the lighting. And to minimize or to focus down, if we can cap lighting, not only for the neighbors, but also for all the wildlife that gets most confused when we illuminate everything. So if we can keep that to a minimum, I think it would be best all around. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak to hearing number 3? Yes, sir. Press the button, please. Sorry.
Klaus Dahman, 810 Main Street. So I was the one that submitted the letter with the 4 comments. Dan and I have been working, and I've also talked to the neighbors. So I think at least my neighbor to the west also, to the east also was on board with the same comments. The only question that I wanted to bring to attention is the fencing that was mentioned by Amy. That is currently there is a fence that exists. It's in disrepair. So I'm not sure if it needs to be reapproved, if it's a replacement of the existing fence, and as we had discussed before with Dan, just something that's a little taller than 6 feet, just to block out, reasonably block out what's being created. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak to hearing number 3? Okay, seeing no more public comments, is there any other questions from the board that can't be answered later on in our discussion?
I have just a question on the posts for the entryway, the stone posts. How far back are they set from the sidewalk?
If you're going to answer, please come up and speak into the mic.
I don't know that exactly, but it's within your setback area.
Scott, I can answer a little bit. I did ask that they put the location on the site plan for the next meeting, so they do need to locate that on the site plan.
Okay. Does the city have a requirement for setback? I'm thinking of safety.
Yes, they need to be outside of the right-of-way, and the Plan Commission can waive any required setback. So a setback is 10 feet, and then you have the opportunity to waive that setback.
We would want to miss the vision triangle as you're pulling in and out of the site. We'd want to be far enough back.
Right, that was my concern. Yep, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant from the board? We've got a question from the audience. Please come up, sir. If you're compatible, you can sit next to each other.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but name and address, please.
My name's Robert Schwolst. My address is 802 Main Street. I'm directly north of this project.
Okay.
And one of my only concerns is on the west side, is there going to be a retaining wall there? Or what are we going to do to refrain from the steep hill?
We got a retaining wall like,
Well, we've been asked to remove all retaining walls and match all grades, so we're trying to take away the difference in grade.
Yeah, we're trying to make it blend.
Just, turn on your mic and please reiterate what was just stated by your expert.
Mark Elena, who's our engineer on the thing, says we were asked to remove all the retaining walls on the site. So we're trying to make the grades work, but I don't know if that's been finalized yet. So when you guys review the final grading drawings, that'll all be addressed.
So Mike, can you put the plan on the screen? So, I don't know if you can see it, but you can see there's a solid line. So the way they're proposing it, those retaining walls would go away, and then there would be this real slight grade that blends in with the existing grades. But again, Public Works does need to review the site plan, and they may or may not require access off of Lake Street, which would could potentially change things. There is a retaining wall on the east side, though, I believe, yes. A 2-foot-ish wall, Mark?
I'll just say it's of paramount concern for this commission and the council and others that when we go through this process, that things like drainage, lighting, noise are impact on you that would differ or be not improved on or worse.
Okay.
Are major concern for this group.
Okay.
So that is something that will be on our radar.
Perfect.
And stay tuned, please.
Very good.
Okay, thanks.
Very good. Thank you.
Is there any other comments for public hearing number 3?
Because I want to keep this open, the discussion should really happen during the hearing instead of the discussion and action. We'll just defer it to the next meeting. But I do just want to make sure Plan Commission gives a little feedback for their plans. And I think we could start with the fence. So they're proposing, the neighbor is proposing a solid 8-foot tall privacy fence on the lot line. And we've had a couple of fences come up recently. I do think it's important to note that the improvements that are going to be made are going to be much quieter and aesthetically pleasing than the existing radon mitigation building and vehicles. So if the Plan Commission does approve fencing, I would just recommend that it be concentrated to maybe the areas of parking instead of it spanning that entire, it's a pretty long property and could be impactful to that block.
So Amy, you're saying we should talk about it now because we're really not going to discuss it later because we're leaving it open?
Well, the public hearing will be open, and if you give them feedback, then they may or may not bring forth a fence at the next month's meeting or define it more clearly.
I guess just as a general statement, this feels very residential. It's only 6. I'm not saying 6 is, so why is it feeling like an apartment complex or, yeah, it just feels like it's very residential, so just do what we do with residential, and a lot of times we don't have solid 6-foot or higher fences, right? So, and lighting.
Especially black ones.
And black, yeah, it just doesn't feel, I mean, you're doing a great job, it looks like, with the design. So the fence and the lighting just seem odd to me. But we had somebody obviously come up and say they support it, so just a general comment, that's all.
I would say the only difference from typical residential is that there will be a little parking area on that north side with 2 stalls on each side, and then there will be another parking area on the east side. And we do want to make sure that the headlights do not shine on the neighboring property, and that can be done through heavy evergreen vegetation or through fencing.
Yeah, I think my view was consistent with Dan's, and the way I would frame it is the fencing for the parking lot makes sense, but my sense would be, given the nature of the condos, they look delightful in a neighborhood setting, that take a minimalistic approach to fencing, except where it makes abundant sense.
And what about 8 feet in height if they come in?
I mean,
I'm okay with everything you guys are saying. It all makes sense. We want to make Klaus and the neighbors happy. Klaus and I have already talked. I personally think an 8-foot high fence might be too much. It's going to look too commercial, but we can work that out. You know, I don't know how we address that and make you guys happy, but I mean, Klaus and I can talk about it, or.
It seems high to me, and I'm speaking, if I was interested in one of those condos, as a buyer, I wouldn't be thrilled about an 8-foot fence 10 feet from,
I could see us staggering sections of fence to eliminate the lights and then infilling the areas in between with some kind of landscaping of some sort. Because that's gonna have a much more residential, warmer feel than a straight fence all the way across there.
Yeah, my take on the height would be look at the grade and how that affects from the.
Our
and-
grade is higher than theirs, so that's why we're gonna be that. From their side, man, it's gonna be it's gonna look like a 10 or 12-foot high fence.
Because to me, 8 feet sounds high.
Right.
You know, and I would
It's 'cause it is
rather
high.
look and see what is not as intrusive for height-wise and just cover what needs to be done for lighting for the vehicles.
You know, what we could probably do is, once we get the final grades set, we could probably do a rendering of what it's gonna look like to give you an idea. And to give the neighbors an idea.
What I would recommend, because we're going to move on to other hearings, is work with Klaus, come up with what the two of you think is the best solution, but please submit that before I publish the next, or it won't be republished before we have our next hearing.
Yep.
And it will be posted in a couple of weeks, okay?
Okay.
So if you go off of my staff report, I mean, you can close the hearing if you want to, but again, I would recommend a motion be made to keep the hearing open until the February meeting, when you receive additional information.
So Dan
Second.
moves- Okay, Dan and Ed move in second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, we'll see you again next month. Thank you. And thanks for all the candid feedback from the public and your willingness to work with them. So on to item D, 7D, public hearing number 4, conditional use for Bubbles Foam Farm, location North 101 State Road 83, owner Munger Holdings LLC, applicant Cameron McFarland, MSI General, on behalf of the developer, Lake Country Capital, DBA Bubbles Foam Farm. So I believe I've seen the applicants here. If you'd like to come up and then, pardon me?
They should be told to quiet.
Yeah. All right, thank you. And if the other group wouldn't mind taking your conversation outside, that'd be great. Okay, names and addresses, please.
Sure. John Coots, Vice President at MSI General, and our address is P.O. Box 7, Oconomowoc, Wisconsin.
Cameron McFarland, Project Director at MSI General. Same address.
Okay.
Christopher Mullet, co-owner of Bubbles Foam Farm, 935 Emerald Drive, Hartford, Wisconsin.
All right, thanks. Amy, brief description,
Okay, so.
or as detailed as you want.
Do you like that? He likes to say brief. I'm not brief, okay? The applicant came in August of this year proposing to redevelop the Hardy site as a car wash. The property is 1.28 acres in size. It is similar to the car wash that they currently operate in Oconomowoc, if you've seen that along Highway 67 in the Paps Farms area. The application is twofold. It requires a conditional, all car washes require a conditional use in the B3 district, which this is in. And they also need special approval to have a retaining wall greater than 3 feet in height. So there'll be two separate considerations being made. So if you've been to the Oconomowoc site, this car wash, again, is gonna look really similar. There's some slight modifications to the architectural design. It is 25 feet longer, and they will have twice as much occupancy for stacking of vehicles. I believe they'll be able to stack 40 vehicles on the property, and then they'll have several vacuum stations and drying off stations, and then 4 additional parking stalls for their employees. And car washes don't, in the code, they don't have a minimum requirement for parking, so Plan Commission will really need to decide whether or not that is or isn't sufficient, based on the number of employees that they have. And you should probably ask how many employees will be on site as part of this public hearing. Okay, this is a long report, so bear with me. The building is 5,514 square feet. It will be 1 story. The access to the site, let me go back to, okay. Okay, the access to the site will be moved. It's currently in the northeast corner, right off of, as you come in off of 83. That will be removed, and it'll be moved to the far west side of the site, and there'll be a separate entrance and then exit. So traffic will come through, be queued it through the car wash, and then it'll wrap around on the north side and leave from there. There is also an easement on the south side of the property and the east side of the property. So right now, you may or may not use it, but there's a private road that comes off near Olive Garden behind McDonald's, and then you can wrap around the back of this site. The applicant's proposal is to remove that road entirely, and the engineering department will need to review a restoration plan for that area. And also remove the easement. The easement removal is going to be a requirement of, in order to develop on this site for the city and for the applicants. The application to develop just doesn't work without getting rid of that easement. The easement serves the McDonald's and then also the adjacent property to the north. Is that correct? Those, essentially those two properties? Or are there more properties that it serves?
Okay. Gotta turn your mics on.
Not that easement.
Okay. And then they did include there will be a dumpster enclosure that's kind of at the entrance to all of these vacuum stalls. They will need to wheel it out. That's how they do it at their Oconomowoc site correctly, and it works well for them. I have a rendering that I don't believe made it in the packet, but I will say this is a nice rendering. They have the smartboard siding, vertical siding for most of it, and then the base will be brick to match the building. The siding also matches the building, and then there'll be metal coping at the top of the enclosure. And let's see what else. Wisconsin Department of Transportation has reviewed the project, and they have determined that no additional road improvements are required at the 83 intersection. Their architectural renderings have changed since the first submittal. So I'm just going to quick show you, if you remember in August, this was their original submittal, a little bit more barn type feel, a little bit more similar to Pabst Farms, other than the base had the brick, where there it's more of a fieldstone material. Their application now is, let's see, we got lots of pages to this, so is a little bit more of a modern take on a farm structure. It's still Bubbles Foam Farm, but I believe that's, the white is an EFIS material. And then the gray is the smartboard dark gray siding. And the roof is a mixture of a metal roof and asphalt shingles. Black windows. Anything else I need to add? Doors, color doors?
Still brick on the bottom as well, Amy.
Oh, stone brick on the bottom. The color of the doors are black, except the overhead doors for the wash are more of a, I don't know, is it, I don't know what kind of material that is, but it's see-through, right? Engineering department, if you look in the packet, they've done a detailed review of the stormwater and erosion control. So actually, the Hardy site, which has been around for a very long time, had more impervious surface than what is being proposed. There's a little more green space on this proposal, but they do still need to meet requirements, and the engineering report has quite a few conditions that will need to be addressed. And then the engineering department also reviewed the development is part of a wellhead protection ordinance that the city has that covers this corner of the city, a pretty small area. And that ordinance prohibits hazardous and toxic material storage and use, hazardous and toxic waste facilities and underground storage tanks. And the applicant and engineering has been going back and forth for months and months. That's why you've been waiting for a bit. And they have been able to prepare a plan that includes eco-friendly car wash products that have been reviewed by the engineering staff. They have provided a spill containment plan that details actions and engineering controls to prevent the release of chemicals from the site. And they're also constructing a basement to this building just for the purpose of containing the materials, because the ordinance doesn't allow underground storage. When we say underground storage, meaning under the dirt ground, not basement underground. So it will be completely contained within a basement structure. The Delhart has also reviewed the proposal and has approved the business operations itself. They will need to pay for quite a few additional dwelling unit equivalents for the sewer service. And they are proposing, back to a site plan here, why they need retaining wall approval. You can see on the south side, it wraps around the east a little bit, a 6-foot tall retaining wall with a guardrail in order to manage the grades. And because of that, the Plan Commission will have to approve that specifically, but we can talk about that during discussion and action. The fire department has reviewed the site. They do just want verification that the turning radiuses have been met. They need accessibility within 100 feet of all parts of the building. They do want more information on the ground materials to make sure that their trucks can get through the site without any issues. And they do just want the final information on the access easement to make sure that they have accessibility to the site at all times. Because this site is actually accessed through private roads on both sides. That's not a public road that goes through there. Signage, they do show some wall-mounted signs in the designs, but they'll need to come back for Plan Commission approval with detailed scaled renderings for that. Right now, they haven't indicated that they'll be proposing a freestanding sign, but we'll see what they come in with. That can be a condition of approval. The landscaping plan, they did submit a landscape plan. The site definitely will have a lot more landscaping than it has now. And we did have our the engineering team's landscape architect review the plan. They did think that it will be sufficient to manage salt storage or salt tolerant, they're using salt tolerant species, and that they will have the space needed for snow storage. They are making some recommendations that we can incorporate in the conditions, such as using low salt in certain areas in order to protect the plants. And then lighting, the lighting engineer did also review the lighting plan and did say that it complied with the ordinance. They're proposing 10 light poles. These poles will be 20 feet in height at the entrance, and then the vehicle queuing area and the parking area. The poles will be dark bronze with square poles. They'll all be downcasted lights. And then they'll have 5 additional wall-mounted lights, and there won't be any lights along 83, correct, on the building side of 83. The one comment the lighting engineer did make is that they're proposing 4,000 Kelvin lights, which is a very bright, stark light, where they could, if they reduced it to 3,000 Kelvins, which a lot of communities are starting to require, it creates more of a warmer yellowish hue over the white. So that's something that you may want to consider. They will need to submit a detailed business plan of operation before they open. You can start construction without it. And then we'll wait for discussion and action to go over all the conditions.
Thanks, Amy. Is there anything you'd like to add, just a brief overview of your company or something just for the public hearing's sake?
We just love giving everybody shiny cars.
It's a good time of year.
It makes everybody feel good.
All right, thanks. Thank you very much. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to come speak to public hearing number 4 regarding Bubbles Car Wash? Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak to this? Yes, sir. Need to make room. So press the bottom bar and name and address, please.
Ken Harrow, 327 Anderson. It's a sea of corporations at 83 and 94. These guys are local, they're committed to the community, they're here all the time. They run an excellent business in Oconomowoc that I'm sure you probably all have seen, if not used. I think it'd benefit Delafield to have local guys or a local company build in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comments for public hearing number 4? Yes.
Hi, me again, Jackie Valdi Milstead, 816 Mill Street. I'm very excited about them. I've actually used them in Oconomowoc, and they did a touchless job on my brand-new car, which was lovely. That said, I want to make sure that we protect the water, and it's in a very sensitive area that has maybe a little bit more requirements in terms of making sure that our water is protected here in the city. And I ask you to make no compromise or never apologize for protecting the water here. We want shiny cars. We also want healthy lake. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments for hearing number 4? Okay, seeing none, hearing number 4 is now closed. So I'd like to do, and I know it's been a long time, but I'd like to take number 10A out of order, and that would be for 158 West Main Street, owner applicant Fred and Irene Haskins, for a site plan and appearance review for a construction of a retaining wall. Is the applicant here tonight? Please come forward. Thanks for waiting. So while they're So for those are willing, or going to speak, just name and address, please. Press the bottom button. You don't have to hold it. Just, there you go.
Fred Haskins, Irene Haskins, 158 West Main Street. And Grant and his son Braden are the contractors. And
Grant Pazorski, Eagle Exterior Contractors, West 304, South 3925, Brook Hill Road, Waukesha, Wisconsin.
Okay, thank you. Amy, overview, please.
Okay. This property is 0.27 acres in size on the south side of Main Street. This is west of Cushing Park Road, so on the west side of the city. The property contains a single-family home, attached garage, and a series of failing timber retaining walls, and I think we've got some good pictures in here. So you can see that they already have a significant grade change in the back of their property with quite a few walls that were not engineered or designed and therefore are failing. They want to replace a series of walls with one large segmented concrete block wall that will be 12 feet in height. And that retaining wall will be located 20 to 25 feet from the south lot line and 5 feet from the side lot lines, and I believe it is 20 feet from the house. So it gets challenging. Typically with a wall of this height, we like to see a tiered system so that they can be a little bit shorter, maybe some plantings in between, but they really don't have a lot of room between their house and that steep slope to accommodate that appropriately. So plan commission approval is required for any walls that do exceed 3 feet, and in doing so, plan commission should review the structural soundness of it, the form, color, and make sure that it doesn't have an adverse impact on the property values of the neighborhood. The walls themselves won't really be seen by anyone, but the adjacent property to it would be the south is much higher. So we would recommend that a guardrail or fence type structure be installed on the top of the wall so we don't have any safety issues. And then as part of your review, the applicable conditions would be that they would need engineering review and approval to ensure that it is structurally sound. So we would send the retaining wall to the engineering staff. The applicants have asked to get the approval from Plan Commission first before they invest in that. And that the location and height of the wall is harmonious with the principal structure and consistent with the legislative purposes hereof. And they, again, are replacing existing walls. They need to do something, so it's a matter of exactly what they do that you're looking at. So with that, I would recommend that you approve the site plan and appearance review for the construction of the walls. I've got 2 standard conditions regarding engineering review, and that a survey be submitted. We do need a survey to show the location of that wall. That is a requirement of the code. And then an added condition, which I do not have in the report, that a fence or other safety measure approved by the building inspector shall be installed at the top of the wall to prevent injury of from falling. I don't know if you have to say the last part or not, but.
So as the applicant, do you have anything you'd like to add or comment on Amy's recommendations or how she presented what you're doing?
No, sir, I don't. Grant may have something to offer.
Yeah, so I guess my concern would be, the request for the fence on top of the wall and why it's applicable. The neighbors just built maybe 4 or 5 years ago, 6 years ago, they built a new construction home. They happen to have, it's, an old chicken wire fence up there, but it's, they do have a fence set back on their property, and with our limited access, this is an expensive adventure, so I don't understand why the bakers should be forced to spend money on putting a wall up so that the neighbors who just recently built a new home don't trespass on our property and fall down our wall.
Are you saying there is a fence?
There is.
How high is the chicken wire?
It's, it's probably 20 feet in there, and it's your old style, wire fence when you go deer hunting and you run into, a 3-4 tier. I'd be willing to go up there and bring my team up there and try to lift some of the posts that may have fallen down and make it a little bit nicer, but that's a pretty substantial expense for us on top of that wall. It's an expensive wall, so we did everything we could to meet their budget. We're substantially below all the other bidders, and this is a great family, military, and we're trying to do our part to help them out.
So when you say pull up some of the fence, the fence is in disrepair then?
It's not great, it's 20 feet's good, and then one section's, half tumbled from, it's got partial lumber fall on it, let's call it. I just don't know, getting up on top there. This grade is pretty steep, so, a couple of the questions is a neighbor gonna let me come through his property to be able to work up there to do something? We have an extremely limited situation behind the home. When you look at the rendering, it really doesn't tell the story. So I'm gonna have to try to climb around with our equipment around the side of the house to the west. We have a real tight restriction, and then I gotta figure out something that not only gets up, but is gonna oscillate out and be able to give me room, to get up on top of there. I don't know.
I don't doubt that it's going to be a challenging build, absolutely. I just think that Commission's concern is about safety, neighbors,
safety,
wildlife.
It could be safety for their own people. Amy or Scott, the fence isn't even a choice, is it? It's a requirement over 4 feet or?
I don't know that at all.
I thought that had been put in the ordinance that over a certain height wall has to be fenced.
We don't have it in ordinance. It's a standard practice that people have been putting some kind of a guardrail or fence. It can be directly on top of the wall, can't it, Scott?
It can, and it's an extremely tall wall in a residential neighborhood, not a commercial parking lot or,
I think that would be desired if you had children over and they're running up the hill and.
No, you can't get up there.
Yeah,
I can't get up there.
From the top.
Nobody's getting up there.
Yeah,
Our team isn't getting up there.
Understood. We hear what you're saying, but the fact is, while it may be an additional expense, being sued for somebody falling down that wall, that'd be a lot more expensive. So we have to look out for the safety of, somebody walks in the backyard who doesn't belong there, doesn't know what's there, they fall down that wall. It's something pretty serious. So my question is, looking at the map, the property to the south covers the entire width of your property, correct?
Correct.
How wide is that fence that you're talking about?
80 feet.
Okay.
Who owns that
I
fence?
suspect. Because they built up top here, but, they have grade drop on all sides. They have our drop, they have drop all the way around. So there's, you know, there's substantial drop. I don't understand why a building permit is issued for them in allowing them not to protect their own safety, because they're danger on all sides.
Couple of questions. I talked to Amy this morning about this. From looking at, I drove out there to look at it, so I know what the challenges are.
Thank you.
But behind that wall, when I go on the map, it looks like there's a green space, and then beyond that green space looks like homes. Is that a accurate representation of what's behind that wall?
It's a sparse wooded area, so it's probably 50, 60 feet of sparse woods, and then it opens up to their building site with their backyard, which is also very small. They must have cleared out a percentage of the timber to give themselves a little bit of a backyard. I guess maybe the next option would be, which would be much more economical, could I do, you know, a post and cedar, you know, set back away from the wall up there where I could, you know, crawl a team up there, and then we could hand auger and build a fence away from the wall as opposed to on top of the wall. I'm just looking for options that are economical.
I mean, one of the thoughts, I mean, you have to get those blocks up 10 feet, so you're gonna have some kind of crane or something.
Yep.
And, you know, I wasn't visualizing a fence on top of the stone, but rather, and I don't know what the property line is, but rather, I'm making up a number, 4 feet back. The problem with split rail is that you have, you know, you have some 8-year-old kids playing back there, and they're curious about this space, and they just clip over the, you know, it's similar to a pool, why we require certain fencing around pools, it's safety. And I think there is a, you know, I get the expense, I mean, you have a liability. If somebody falls down there and is paralyzed, you know, you have a liability. But, so it seems to me that you should be able to, with a, however you're gonna get that stone up there, you could get chain link wire up there, and then as you mentioned, with ladders, 2 or 3 people to put that fence up.
Would that be code, chain link, like a 4-foot chain link?
Yes, and we would want it separate from the wall. We don't want it, we want it away from the wall, otherwise it's gonna affect the integrity of the wall.
Yeah.
Is that more acceptable? I mean, when we refer to the fence being on top of the wall, it's probably not the right way to put it. It's at the top, so it's protecting people from going over the wall. But, you know, like I said, depending upon the lot line, some number of feet back, and this, I don't know that we have a requirement that it be aesthetically pleasing. It just needs to make sure that it's safety. That's really all we're concerned about.
Yeah, you'd want to, I would just caution that it not be so far back that the neighbor's staring at a chain link fence, because you normally don't approve that either.
Right.
Well, okay, true. But if they're looking at a kind of rundown chicken wire fence that's there right now, I'm not sure this is worse. In fact, it sounds a lot better, but I'd have to go back and look.
What's your property line, where you see that wall? How far back does it go?
I just went up there with my hand app as I went up, and we got plenty of space. So, I mean, I could probably build that fence with a 6 feet setback, you know, because as we build, we're gonna geogrid, we're gonna chip, drain tile all the way up. It's a big wall, so we wanna build it right. I wanna get past where I'm, you know, where all my geogrid, my chips, and I wanna cover it. I wanna make sure I'm past that point. So if we get 5, 6 feet back, I think we're probably still 30 to 40 feet from their visual nature. And if we make it 4 feet with a, you know, a black rod or something, you know, I don't think it's gonna be I don't think they'll even be able to see it, to be honest with you.
If it's wooded, and, you know, if I owned a home back there and I didn't like fences, maybe I won't like your fence, but if I had kids, I wouldn't want them walking over to a 10-foot wall and playing around. So I think putting a fence 4 feet back or 6 feet back, if it's within the property setback, it's no different than a swimming pool in terms of a neighbor thinking of a fence being.
Yeah, but if you have a home and you build a new home with that type of grade and you're worried about your kids, you should build your own fence.
Well, you know,
I mean, the walls, it's a like for like. We have a 12-foot wall there now that's falling apart, that's unsafe, and we're gonna build a safe kind 12-foot wall, so.
I hear what you're saying, but the equivalent is saying if you want to put a pool in without a fence and the neighbors are worried about the kids, they should put the fence up.
disagree, but okay. Absolutely.
Have you spoken with the neighbors? Have you spoken with the neighbors?
Ma'am, I have, a few years back, quite a few years back, I was trying to get access from the top to do the wall long time ago, and they just weren't receptive to giving us access to their property to get into the top where we needed to.
I still recommend talking with the neighbors, let them know what your plans, possible plans are for a fence at the top.
Okay.
So Scott, when talking about different fence options, we've approved some fences, and he mentioned putting in posts and wires. I mean, would a livestock, do you think a livestock type fence, like?
Well, a 4-foot high chain link fence in the rear yard does not require plan commission review or approval. They come to me and get a permit, and it can be anywhere really on the property. 4 feet high, at least 50% open, come to me and get a permit, install it anywhere on your property.
Right, okay, but talking about, I mean, just from, we were talking about economy before, you know, the economics of it. We approved, I know we approved a fence that had dubious, like, aesthetic value along 83 for somebody who just had horses and that.
That's on Nagawicca Road.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Near the
Nagawicca
river.
Road. So do you think something like that would serve the same purpose, or that's not?
It would serve the same purpose. It's really about safety.
And so that's just, we're just looking for a barrier to stop a running.
A runaway toboggan.
Right, and so, I mean, so there'd be multiple options as far as a fence type and style, and something minimalistic, especially because from an aesthetic standpoint, dealing with this setback where it is. I've driven by your property 1,000 times. I had no idea that wall was back there. I imagine there was something keeping the hill up, but I had no idea it was that close to your house. And you clearly need to do something about it. And so from an aesthetic standpoint, what you have right now, there's nothing good looking about that falling timber. And so I'm just saying, we don't need a glamorous fence back there, but working with staff, I think a fence is a reasonable ask, in my opinion, and for this group.
Tim, I just wanted to see if I'm on the same wavelength of what you're talking. You're not talking about a split rail fence.
No, I'm talking about posts and like
Lattice or whatever.
Like a not quite chicken wire, but more like a rabbit fencing, like just small rectangle
Yeah,
wire
got it.
fence
So,
between
Like you
posts.
see on the side of the freeway.
It would actually be
Yeah.
better looking than a chain link fence if you're
Yeah.
from a neighbor's
No, okay, I
standpoint,
get
looking
it.
in the woods, you wouldn't
But-
even see it.
An 8-year-old couldn't get through it.
Correct.
No.
But it might even be harder to climb over a wire fence than a chain link fence. I mean, chain link fences were not much of an obstacle.
Yeah,
when
I
was
get
eight.
it. That makes sense to me.
I know.
Does this alleviate some of your concerns? It's got to be some elaborate fence and a super expensive fence that it probably could be economically done?
I think what we should do now is, we wanted to, the reason I wasn't more extensive with the engineering, we wanted to get some feedback.
Yeah.
And we realized we had another meeting coming. So if you're gonna allow us to build the single straight wall, then what I would like to do next is start really researching how economically I can build a fence.
Yeah.
We look at our options, and then we present next meeting and say, this is what we think the most economical way is, and you say yes or no. That's gonna be up, my client, obviously.
Yeah.
So the way that the motion is drafted, they actually don't have to come back. They would just get engineer approval. They would submit their plan for a fence. Scott would look at it, and if it meets the intent of safety, review and approve it, and then we would issue you your permit. So you shouldn't have to come back here unless Plan Commission wants to see it, the fence.
No.
No, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
The fence would be located and extend the full width of the wall, I think.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the fence and its height pursuant to city engineer approval of the stability. of the
Scott, the wall and its height.
Yeah.
The wall,
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
I'm sorry, the wall.
Good.
City engineer approving the stability and construction of the wall and requiring a fence 4 feet height, subject to the building inspector's approval
And a survey.
and a survey.
Second.
Any more discussion? Any questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, or abstentions? All right, thank you very much for working through us with this. Okay, now back to our regular order of business, which is going on to, 8, citizens' comments for items other than what was on the consent agendas. Anyone have comments other than things that were already brought up? Oh, am I going too far backwards?
No, and public hearing.
No, that's good, and public hearing. All right, 9, unfinished business. A, DLC 0784971003445, 1100 and 1210 Highway 83 and adjacent to the south, owner Elmbrook Church, applicant Michael Jones, requesting conditional use permit, conditional use amendment, site plan and appearance approval to allow construction of an outdoor playground and relocation of a tent that is used for summer camps. So this is part of one of our public hearings.
We beat this one up pretty good last month, didn't we?
I thought so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, if the applicant's here, please just come up and see if we want to badger you at all. Is there any questions for the applicant, or Amy, you want to suggest what possible motions would be?
So if you have questions, feel free, but the possible motion would be to recommend that Common Council approve the proposed CU and site plan and appearance amendment, subject to the amendment being limited to the placement of the proposed playground and relocated temporary tent that is used for summer camps, a map that illustrates the location of the playground area and relocated tent areas enclosed as Exhibit A. That was the map I showed during the public hearing. And unless modified here, and all previous conditional use approvals and related provisions on the property remain in place. And then staff is directed to draft a conditional use agreement for review and approval by Common Council. The final approved agreement shall be signed by the property owner and city and be recorded with Waukesha County Register of Deeds office prior to the CU amendment being effective.
So moved.
So moved.
For those two conditions. Is there any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, or abstentions? Thank you. You've been approved. Who was the second on that?
I'll
was
take
the
the
second.
second. Let
No,
Matt.
I was-
Dan is taking full credit.
You're a gentleman and a scholar.
Okay, item 9B, 333 Lapham Peak Road, owner American Legion Post number 196, applicant Terry Frazier, requesting conditional use amendment, site plan appearance approval to allow construction of a 1,296 square foot storage building. You're you're making through the night, very good.
Do you have to give her name and address or no?
She's already on the record. If we ask her a question, you get to speak up again, so.
Okay. All right, so a couple extra things here that I just want to bring up. So landscaping, right now, so as part of your conditions of review and approval for this conditional use, you can consider things such as landscaping, architectural design, type of construction, lighting, fencing, planting, screens. From what I can tell, there's no lighting proposed on the exterior of the building?
That's correct.
Okay, so there is no exterior lighting. The screening, they're relying on the Delafield Parkway screening. I do have a recommended condition that no outdoor storage be placed around the building, but Plan Commission may want to consider whether or not you want to require any kind of landscaping around the perimeter of the building. And then the construction does seem to match the main building well enough. With that, I would recommend that Common Council approve the proposed CU and site plan and appearance amendment, subject to the CU being limited to the construction of a storage building not to exceed 1,296 square feet, and that it be constructed in substantial conformance with the plans presented at the January 29th Plan Commission meeting, and unless modified here, and all previous conditional use approvals and related provisions related to the property remain in place. And no outdoor storage around the perimeter of the storage building or in view of the adjacent property is permitted. And then I do say if any exterior lighting is proposed, a lighting plan shall be submitted for review and approval by Plan Commission, and staff is directed to draft a conditional use agreement for review and approval by Common Council. Same verbiage as the last one. It has to be recorded with Waukesha County Register of Deeds prior to the CU being effective.
So moved.
I'll second that.
No landscaping?
I'm happy to amend my motion if there's
Can I ask,
landscaping.
you're okay with storing everything inside, right?
Yes.
And you can say that now, but suddenly it gets full and you start, I mean, if you stick with that, I don't have an issue with the landscaping, but I just kind of want to hear it.
It's our intention that we don't store anything outside of that building. that the building is large enough to store, what they're storing right now is some garbage cans and that, and it should be stored inside.
And I feel there's adequate landscaping around the back side of this building.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
I wouldn't add any more to it.
I'm good.
All right, any more discussion, questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay, or abstentions? Very good. We'll
you.
get building, thank you. All right. Item 9C, 805 Wells Street and adjacent lands to the east. Owner BAL LER Group, 2 LLC, Tyler Foster. Is this something that we're
We
leaving
skipping
open
that?
for the
Yeah.
next meeting?
Yeah.
I don't think they're still here, so we'll be talking about that next meeting. Then 9D, DLC 0803999, North 101, State Road 83, owner Munger Holdings LLC, applicant Cameron McFarland, MSI General, on behalf of the developer, Lake Country Capital, DBA Bubble Foam Farm, applicant requesting conditional use site plan and appearance approval to allow the development of a car wash. So I've said Munger and Munger, which one is correct? Munger, sorry, thank you. Okay,
I guess one thing, I have a lot of conditions in here, but, and one of them is that they have to have the review and approval of the lighting and landscaping, which we did get the comments from the lighting engineer, so I would like feedback regarding those Kelvin, the brightness, and whether or not the applicant cares if it's 4,000 or 3,000 Kelvins. But that way, at least when we have our engineering review and approve the final lighting plan, we know what you want.
Unfortunately, I don't know that I can give you a great answer on that. I believe we have more of the white light right now in Oconomowoc.
Yeah, when we built the original site in Oconomowoc, everything was 4,000 K. That was required by Oconomowoc. And so with more white and black style of the building, the whiter light would be preferred from an architectural standpoint, the 4,000 K. We went to a 3,000 K, that warmer hue starts to yellow a little bit, and that, if we had a choice, we would say we'd like 4,000 K to A, match Oconomowoc, and B, work better with the style that we've proposed. This is a new comment to us. This is the first time we've heard this tonight,
Yeah.
so.
I guess I would also say that because we're providing parking spaces for people to clean their cars and detail their cars after using the wash, if the overall lighting meets the requirements of the city, I think we would prefer the whiter light. It's just a little easier to see. It's more that daylight feel, so that you can see inside your car, see the paint, see where you're drying, and do things like that.
And I don't know, like Nagawaki shops of Nagawaki, Nagawaki. I don't know, I'm assuming those might be brighter lights too. I don't know that answer.
I think there's a mixed bag up there, and, you know, if I'm gonna guess, I'd say McDonald's is as white as they get, as far as the lights as well. Right, and then, I don't know what DOT has on 83, because that's gonna be probably the biggest light impact is probably off of the highway, right?
Yeah, this might be a commercial enough area where it's irrelevant, but that,
Amy, what brought it up again? I'm sorry. You mentioned it
what
before.
brought it up?
Yeah.
The lighting engineer did his review and stated that, that they meet the ordinance standards, but that Plan Commission may want to consider whether or not the Kelvin
Okay.
level is
All right.
appropriate. Some communities are putting that right in their code to create warmer hues.
Can you explain? I don't understand what,
You've seen blue
What's the difference
headlights, blue
between the
headlights, white headlights, orange headlights? That's,
Yeah,
we were talking
okay.
about the frequency of the light
you
that's
know,
coming out.
from my perspective, given the location of it, I defer to their wishes, that's my point of view.
It doesn't decrease the intensity of the light, just the hue, correct?
The foot candles stay the same. It has to do with the hue, right?
Like you're in Home Depot and you see the different boxes of.
Yes, no, exactly, that's exactly. what-
No, and I get it with your point on cleaning the car. That brighter white does show a little better.
Yeah, I'll reiterate, if this is the first time we've heard this comment tonight, but if we were asked which one we would prefer, we'd say 4,000 K.
Okay.
Okay, are we moving on then?
Yeah, I think
4,000.
very commercial areas.
Okay. So there's a possible motion with several conditions. I'm going to abbreviate and go through some of these.
Amy, is it, I don't want to,
Yep.
I did have a question about 4 parking spaces.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead and ask your question.
That just seems inadequate. That would tell me that you only have 4 employees there at any given time?
That is about our average, that's correct. And we actually have a 5th spot in front of our overhead door on the end of the building that we use as well, so we have that. And we do have an additional, is it 20 or 19 stalls where where our customers can all park and do their vacuuming and detailing on site.
Yeah, this, again, is similar to Oconomowoc. They only have 4 parking stalls over there as well for the employees. The rest of the parking is done at the vac station as they come through and wrap up and move out. So we felt it was adequate for what they use and what they prepare to use.
They're not parking at the Quick Trip? in
What was that?
Oconomowoc? They're not parking at the Quick Trip at Oconomowoc?
The employees?
Yeah.
No.
I'm just kidding.
They're not.
Four employees in car, how do I invest?
The only thing I'm concerned with is that during busy times, I've been over to matter of fact, I was there Sunday, and the traffic for your business was backed up all the way to 67, which I didn't appreciate.
If we want to talk about the Oconomowoc location, at the time, we were only required to have stacking for about 8 to 12 cars. This one has stacking for 40 to 60 cars. So there's a tremendously exponential stacking put into place on this site versus Oconomowoc. And again, yeah, during busy times, there is some backing up in front of Quick Trip over there, but you also find that they put cars through the wash incredibly quick compared to other locations, so that backup does not last long.
I'd like to think if there's more than 40 cars in line, I'm going to a different, come back a
Exactly,
different
you're
time.
driving by.
'Cause that's got to be an hour wait or something.
Yeah.
It's a good comment, but it's been addressed on this particular site based on volume and past experience.
That's a good question. What would be, is it a minute? Would that be a 40-minute wait if there were 40 cars? Or just roughly?
As long as everything goes smoothly. If you're the last one in line and all 3 lanes are filled and we're running, it would probably not be quite 40 minutes, but we have a longer tunnel, so we can run things a little bit faster. We're a little more efficient. We have a lot of cycles of learning with the first site, and I would think it would be that at the most. And I would also add to your comment and what you're referring to, that is a very rare occurrence. It's really these bluebird days after we get a couple inches of snow, the road's dry, and everybody wants to come in and get the salt off their cars. So it's probably a handful of times a year where we're even that busy. The average stacking that you would see in Oconomowoc is probably 5 cars. So.
Any other questions before I go through the motion?
Could I just, you're going to go through the motion, and I want to get these questions in first. The applicant is going to get the waste tested annually, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then they self-report spills, overflows, releases of chemicals to the city. Is it usual and their storage is going to be not underground, but in the basement?
Mm-hmm.
Is it usual and customary to have that storage unit inspected on an annual basis?
We do pump our tanks annually in Oconomowoc, and the way we've designed this site is we are going to have this basement with a graded, what would you call it, a ceiling? A graded floor. It's going to be a shallow basement, only like maybe 6 feet deep. So we're going to be able to walk over it and have visual inspection upon it every day.
Okay. Have you ever had any spills, leaks, et cetera, at your Oconomowoc location?
Never.
Is any of what you do you have to do any DNR reporting or emission reporting or any state things that you have to file or follow through?
No, we use Simonize is our chemical supplier, and all of their products meet all of the federal requirements, the DNR requirements, and as long as the user, us, and our suppliers are following those codes, we don't have to report anything unless there's a spill.
You do recycling, I read, right, of the water?
Correct.
Do those tanks need to be cleaned up periodically? Because I would think it would build up like a little bit of sludge in the bottom.
Yes, that's correct. So there's a trench in the tunnel, and that trench drains into these 3 holding tanks, and we will pump them out multiple times a year.
Okay.
Yeah, so Matt, too, to answer your question, that part of one of the conditions is in there that the city will have access to this site if we care to inspect.
Okay, thank you.
So if there's not a regimented stated time, but
And we
it
don't
just
need
simply says that
cause to inspect?
it's in there that says we'll have access. Is that correct? I mean, that's item J in the.
Yep, including inspection.
In the conditional
We
use.
have access to the site for routine inspection.
It's not a kick down the door and wake you up at 2 a.m. It's a
No, and I
It's a-
think
it's a-
we actually said that too. I think we said, hey, we're happy to
Yeah,
allow you guys to come in anytime and inspect. I mean, we're not doing anything nefarious, so.
Thank you.
So Amy, before you go through conditionals, one other comment that I had for Alderperson Valde's concern about the lake. Years ago, the city put a fortune into storm retention, protecting the 83 and 94 intersection, enough so that we were comfortable for a while with 2 gas stations in there. Going through the documentation we're doing, I'm far less concerned from the lake perspective. I think we're well protected, especially considering their business.
Thanks, Mike.
The water quality impacts were considered greatly, and the
Yep.
conditions reflect that.
It's very thorough.
Yeah,
I
it's very
compliment
thorough.
staff. and
Well
you.
done.
Yep, I read
Mayor.
everything.
Okay.
Want me to go through the conditions?
The reading of the conditions.
The reading of the conditions. Okay, so a possible motion would be to recommend common council approve the proposed conditional use site plan and appearance review, including the construction of a 6-foot-tall retaining wall, subject to the following conditions being met prior to commencing any construction activities other than existing site demolition. We would encourage site demolition at any time. The sooner, the better. 1, the use is limited to a car wash and related amenities such as car vacuuming, drying stations, high-pressure air hoses for drying, blowing water from car tracks. The use shall remain in compliance with the summary document dated November 20th, 2024. So in the packet, you'll see there's a detailed explanation of their uses and provided as part of the January 29th Plan Commission submittal package. Access easement that is located along the south side of the adjacent property to the west, and I give the tax key number, and through the subject property shall be properly vacated with proof being submitted to the city. A landscape plan shall be submitted for review and approval by city staff as part of the engineering review for restoration of that site. And then the property shall be developed in substantial compliance with the stormwater management plans dated July 31st, 2024, prepared by Pinnacle, and the civil plans dated 11/20/2024, prepared by MSI, with the exception of modifications approved by the city. So their engineering is still subject to many conditions. We just don't want them to totally change the site. All conditions of the city's stormwater management and civil plans engineering review as set forth with the review of final plans shall be complied with. And then all recommended conditions of the engineering department specific to the wellhead protection ordinance shall be complied with. I'm not gonna read through these, it gets pretty technical, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, special conditions. If you need me to read through any of them, I
No.
can. But essentially, I mean, they have to use a very specific list of materials. Any changes to that need to be submitted to the city. That's just staff review. There won't need to be an amendment to the conditional use. And then there's conditions about annual reporting and inspections, and so on and so forth. They have to report any spills, any overflows or releases of chemicals. And And then engineered certified plans for the construction of the retaining wall shall be submitted for review and approval by the engineering department. All revisions to the plans shall be submitted to the fire department for written comment, and those comments shall be satisfied. All revisions to the plans shall be submitted to Delhart for written comment, and all of their comments shall be satisfied. They'll also have to pay any additional fees for the dwelling unit equivalent and impact fees related to water usage. 9, a copy of any necessary permits and approvals from the DNR shall be provided to staff. The landscape plan for the subject property and area of private road vacation shall be submitted to the city's engineering department for review and approval. If significant changes are required, as determined by staff, it would need to come back for plan commission approval. Same with the lighting plan, requires engineer approval, and any significant changes need to come back. A business plan of operation application shall be submitted for review and approval by the plan commission prior to commencing any operations on site. A permanent signage application shall be submitted for review and approval prior to installation of any signage. And the site plan and construction documents shall be submitted to the Public Works Committee for review and a comment if the Public Works Committee recommends any changes that the engineering department feels are significant. That revised plan shall be submitted to Plan Commission for review and approval. On that note, engineering staff has suggested that wait until the engineering comments are more significantly addressed. So it'll probably be a March Public Works meeting. And then staff is directed to draft a conditional use agreement that memorializes the conditions, and it shall be signed by the applicant and the city and recorded with Waukesha County Register of Deeds.
I'll move to recommend the Common Council approve the proposed conditional use site plan and appearance review, including construction of a 6-foot retaining wall, subject to the following conditions as noted in the packet, items 1 through 15, met prior to commencing any construction activities other than existing site demolition.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion or questions regarding that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, or abstentions? Okay, motion carries.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck.
The time is now for clean cars. Thanks, guys. All right, so item 10 has been accomplished already. Item 11, nothing on comprehensive zoning and plan ordinance revision. Reports of city officials, 12, correspondence, it's in the packet. Planner, Amy, anything for us?
American business plan of operation. This is just an owner and business ownership change. It's an acknowledgement. It's already been approved.
All right, thank you. Scott, building inspector, what do you got for us?
Nothing. I promised something and I'm not prepared. Next month.
Don't promise.
Good call.
So you might have something for us next month. Okay.
Correct.
All right, 13, Plan Commission meeting dates and deadlines. Regular meeting is February 26th. Regular meeting submittal deadline is today. Item 14, seeing no further business, we are now adjourned at 8:34.